Hey guys, welcome to our podcast with Caden.
Co.
And Christian. Together, we are KKC, or the Cool Kids Club, here to reflect and discuss the topic of rebellion through literature.
Okay, so first up in our discussion, we have the graphic novel Persepolis, wherein we'll discuss political, social, and ideological rebellions. So, Caden, tell us how Margie defined the Iranian regime.
So Margie basically does many things to defy the Iranian Revolution, as examples like her hair sticking out of her veil, as well as holding parties, drinking alcohol, and then playing card games. And she also attends demonstrations, as well as wears clothing that is banned.
And Christian, what would you say these actions were effective or not?
So although the demonstrations are slightly effective in showing the power of the individuals in their fight for right, it doesn't really have a big effect due to the satrapi's lack of status and therefore a voice. But most of the other ways that Margie's family defies the Iranian regime is done in secret behind closed doors, so it doesn't really affect the government. However, in building the courage and character of the satrapies, the movements are slightly more effective as their continued defiance leads to Margie building a sense of pride in her family's actions. So, to wrap up the discussion on Persepolis' political rebellion, what risks were involved in Margie's defiance against the Iranian government?
So the risks involved are mostly them getting caught by the Guardians of the Revolution. We can see this when the people follow them home to check their house, and also when the Guardians of the Revolution stop Margie and try to take her to the committee.
Great, so now we'll talk about how Margie rebelled socially. Take us away, Caden.
So Margie basically is educated with Western ideas, and these ideas lead to her having things like denim jackets, posters, and shoes. And she also practices religion, which is banned. And Margie has consequences to these things, basically being targeted by the Guardians of the Revolution, as well as when she speaks back, she gets kicked out of school. So in terms of ideological revolutions, Christian, would you say Margie completely abandons her family ideals?
In a way, Margie tends to hop in and out of her family's ideals. And this is because Margie is very interested in the concept of heroes, which we can see when she resides in Anoush, her uncle's ideals. After learning that her dad isn't a hero, she tends to disagree and feud with her parents' discussions, providing insight based on Anoush or whatever she learned in school that day. So, how does Margie navigate her changing beliefs?
So Margie uses isolation to indulge her own beliefs. For example, the basement and the incident with the cigarette. Margie also tries to console with God and her parents during times of desperation or isolation. And lastly, she indulges in Western clothes, posters, and media. Moving on to Animal Farm, Caden, what are the initial motives for rebellion? Are they political or are they social and ideological too?
Sure, I think we should ask George Orwell, the author of Animal Farm. Come on out, Mr. Orwell.
Hey guys, it's me, George Orwell. So, some of the initial motivations for the animal rebellion in Animal Farm are Mr. Jones' mistreatment of the animals, in which he neglects them and feeds them poorly, and also Old Major's rallying animals to rebel, where he creates the song Beasts of England. And although these initial motivations aren't political, over time after the death of Old Major, this revolution is used as a leverage for the pigs to garner votes and support for the continued pig rule. In terms of a social rebellion, the animals find that the humans put themselves at the top of the social class despite not working for the resources. So this is why they rebel in order to fix the disparity in the social class. For ideological rebellion, in order to escape from the unfair rights casted upon them by humans, the animals try to enforce their own ideals through the rebellion.
Thanks, Mr. Orwell. Now, would you say Animal Farm's rebellion was a success or failure?
Okay, so the Animal Farm Rebellion first succeeds in its goals through rebellion through getting rid of Mr. Jones and the other farmers and becoming an independent farm. It also manages to stop unfair treatment of animals like the taking of cows' milks and the hens' eggs. All animals work evenly, fairly, without stealing, leading to the initial prosper of the farm and resources, and the rising of the crop yields as well as food for animals increases. Unfortunately, ultimately the rebellion fails because its initial purpose is lost when the pigs shift from an equal form to a corrupt pig-led farm. Um, The propaganda put in place by the pigs through Squeaker, as well as the gullible characteristics of the animals, allow the pigs to maintain their rule and manipulate the animals. And this is because other animals lack the ability to read. Hey Caden, do you recall any positive or negative results of the rebellion?
So there are many positive things, like the initial increase in resource and revenue, as well as living conditions and equal treatment of all animals. But there were many negative things, like the bending of rules to support the pigs. Like an example would be the changing of the Seven Commandments to fit what the pigs need, as well as a new unfair social structure where the pigs being at the top and the pigs taking over as a tyranny, as well as the use of fear and oppression throughout the animals to take control.
That about wraps it up for our discussion on Animal Farm. Let's move on to Aristotle and Dante to discover the secrets of the universe. Caden, how has Aristotle's struggle with sexuality and societal expectation a form of rebellion?
As Aristotle struggles with his sexuality, it is an internal rebellion against what he feels and is trying not to face it, but he accepts it. And another way is through struggles between sexuality and societal expectations that go against the norms of his family's culture as well as the current society. So, Christian, how does it compare to the external forms of rebellion in other novels?
So Aristotle's internal struggle of sexuality is purely fought within, and his ability to fight can only come passively from his self and his own motivation. But other rebellions like the Iranian one in Persepolis and the political one in Animal Farm are fought outside with members actively fighting it. And in this, the ability to fight comes from a collective effort of like-minded individuals. Hey, Ko, how does the friendship between Ari and Dante challenge Ari's limitations?
Well, firstly, Aristotle's friendships help him with his limitations through him and Dante being opposite in some ways. As Dante is more open with his emotions, it starts to change Aristotle.
Okay, now to compare and contrast the motivation of the rebellion in all three novels. So, to compare, each character in all of the books faced oppressive systems, whether it be social, political, or ideological. For Persepolis, the Iranian regime's propaganda and repression of its people is what the Margie faces. In Animal Farm, the animals have to face the pig's corrupt rule over the unknowing animals. And in Aristotle and Dante, Aristotle is forced to overcome the attraction to Dante. To contrast, while Persepolis' motivation for rebellion stems from Margie's personal experiences and interaction with its members of the revolution, Animal Farm's motivations stem from poor treatment and inequity. Furthermore, Aristotle's rebellion stems from his dreams and changing views on Dante. So, to talk about if they were driven by a desire for political change, social justice, or or personal freedom, in Persepolis, the rebellion is driven by all three: political, social, and personal freedom. It is political because Margie's rebellion is against the Islamic Republic, social because of the gender equality and class disparities, for example, Margie's family maid, and personal because being part of the rebellion is fighting for individual expression and having an identity that differs from the average Iranian woman. In Animal Farm, it is mainly driven by political change to overthrow the oppressor, Mr. Jones, and establish animalism. The animals do this to advocate for a society where animals can govern themselves without human intervention. As for Aristotle and Dante, it's mainly about the fight for personal freedom, things like sexual and cultural identity. Hey Caden, what is the role of leadership in the novels?
So, leaders in each rebellion shapes their own way. As leaders in Animal Farm, being Napoleon shapes his own way to bettering the farm and also the quality of life of the animals. While in Persepolis, Margie shapes her own rebellion through her experiences and her conflicting ideas. She always decides on an adult to agree with and then models her ideas after them. And in Aristotle and Dante, like Margie, they lead their own internal revolution, and through their personal experience together, they both shape each other's and support one another's to motivate each other. Most leaders are effective, like Aristotle and Dante, succeeding through coming to terms with how they feel and their relationship. And Margie succeeds in keeping her identity and ideals that go against the oppressive Islamic regime, showing her personal growth and ability to maintain individuality. But on the other hand, some leaders like Napoleon only somewhat succeed, as he meets his goals by producing more food and money on the farm. But Napoleon is also a type of dictator that uses propaganda and fear amongst the animals, being a fear leader, and in the end, becoming the humans that he once hated. And we can also see that their approaches differ, as through Aristotle and Dante, their approach is more centered on personal growth and self-acceptance, and Dante is more open and expressive with his approach, as Aristotle is more independent and quiet about his approach, and Margie is more focused on her self identity and keeping it, as well as being curious to the outside world as she learns more things. Napoleon's approach to the rebellion and being a leader differs a lot from both the others through using manipulation and cunning tactics, as well as using his power and other things to keep his power like propaganda through Squealer, as well as fear through the dogs. And through his approach, he tries to maintain power and get rid of people that oppose him and rebel against him, like the animals and Snowball. So, what is the cost of change in the three novels?
Okay, so all three novels depict the challenges and the sacrifices associated with rebellion. First novel I'm going through is Animal Farm. The first challenge depicted would be unifying the animals to rebel, which is creating a unified coup to overthrow Mr. Jones, which they end up doing by rallying the animals by creating the Beast of England. Next is betrayal or corruption. Um, an example of this challenge being faced in the novel is when the pigs rise to power. The pigs' rise to power leads to the exploitation of animals, which was ironically similar to the oppression faced before the rebellion, when Mr. Jones was still leading the farm. The next challenge is individual sacrifices. The death of animals on the farm, and also mainly Boxer's death, and the loss of personal freedom because of strict control under pigs. Next, Persepolis. First challenge being personal risk and safety. So individuals who oppose the regime usually get tortured, imprisoned, or executed. Next, emotional or psychological strain from living in fear of being arrested/persecuted. Next, impact on daily life, which is the change in social dynamics, which are relationships and social interactions affected by political climate. The last novel, Aristotle and Dante, there are challenges in the novel such as internal conflict, struggling with identity and sexuality, understanding and accepting oneself. Next, societal and cultural pressures from Mexican American heritage and common stereotypes, which lead to feelings of isolation and pressure to conform to regular societal norms. Okay, so the novels portray potential costs by showing the pigs abusing power and exploiting animals, most specifically Boxer. The Animal Farm Rebellion also leads to the purging of animals that are seen as a threat to Napoleon. Next in Aristotle and Dante, we see a potential cost being Dante identifying as gay, which results in him being persecuted and bullied, notably when several young men jump him for kissing Daniel. Fear of rejection experienced by both characters about coming out to family and friends, leading to self-doubt and hesitation. Lastly, from Persepolis, we see leaving the oppressive government in Persepolis is made difficult by the strict rules around entering and leaving the country, further solidifying the dictatorial nature of the said country. Lastly, in Persepolis, the protests held usually result in several casualties and a decrease in morale due to the lack of immediate change in government. So, Christian, do you think you could introduce us to the power of individuality in each of the novels?
So, in Animal Farm, even though the animals that inhabit the farm are all joined in a collective movement, certain groups of individuals on the farm, such as the pigs, have motives that differ from the other animals. Those being methods to consolidate their own power and create certain laws that appeal only to themselves, which are the Seven Commandments. This separation of power is important because it highlights the betrayal of all the other animals since they were initially promised a farm that valued equality. In Persepolis, Margie shows a strong sense of one's self-identity and stands out from the others during the Islamic regime. Throughout the novel, she tries to express herself, and we can see this when she tries to walk outside with clothes that were banned. This shows that she doesn't want to change, and although this doesn't affect the rebellion, as Margie is only one person, through her and maybe her friends and family, they are inspired. And if multiple individuals make a change, the rebellion will be more effective. As for Aristotle and Dante, individuality is portrayed within Aristotle and Dante and through their own self-discovery. We can see that Aristotle, although keeping to himself, makes decisions for himself and others, like when he saves Dante and beats up his bully. These decisions lead to his personal growth within his internal rebellion.
So moving on to additional prompts, we'll first start off with Persepolis, and the scene we chose is where Margie smokes a cigarette. So it shows one of the only moments where she completely disregards all of her boundaries and fully rebels against opposing ideas. It also shows her development and commitment for her rebellion and her personal growth. And in Animal Farm, we chose Old Major's speech, and the significance of the speech is that it sparks the revolution against Mr. Jones and leads the animals down a whole other path that eventually has other consequences. And in Aristotle, the quote we chose was, "I can't believe I was ashamed of loving Dante Quintana." And this scene is where Aristotle kisses Dante, and it lets the reader know that Aristotle has come to terms with the fact that he loves Dante, and also shows his personal growth. So the next thing we'll discuss is the current state of Iran. So with the Iran-Iraq war ending, a new war against Israel started up in 1985, which started as a proxy war during the Cold War and is still ongoing till this day. And Iran is also under a Islamic theocracy where they regularly punish activists and religious and ethnic minorities that try to speak out against the regime. Finally, Ko, can you tell us about the events and consequences of the death of Mahsa Amini?
Alright, so Mahsa Amini was an Iranian woman who died in a hospital in Tehran, which is a city in Iran, after being detained for incorrectly wearing hijab by the Guidance Patrol, which is the religious morality group of the Iranian government. At the police station where she was being held, the law enforcement command of the Islamic Republic of Iran reported that she had suffered a heart attack and fell into a coma that landed her in the hospital. The controversy in her death, however, lies in its suspicious supposed cause. Despite the Islamic law enforcement saying that she had a heart attack, many eyewitnesses who were present at the police station stated that she was beaten and had died due to police brutality. Her death resulted in many protests that occurred around the country, resulting in the death of many people present in the demonstrations, but also ignited the birth of the global women life freedom movement.
We hope you guys enjoyed this podcast of the KKC or the Cool Kids Club.